Um, Brayton's one of our graduating students this semester. He just was selected as the commencement speaker to represent adult and graduate students. So I just want to shine some light on him, and I don't know if you have any words of wisdom, right? He was joking that he's going to get a speech coach, right? And you have any words of wisdom for him?
Right. Is this for the vocational rehab program?
Yeah, so it's for all graduation, but we have an undergrad and grad, two different commencements. So yes, but he's representing all graduate and adult programs. So if you're sort of not a traditional undergrad, that he's going to be the voice of Maryville graduation commencement. We need to get a tagline for you or something.
My plan is to do a little bit of juggling, I think. Like at the laser light show, smoke machine.
Yes.
Or
a walkout sound. You're gonna...
On this episode of Mentor Moments, we are joined by Miss Alexis Duggan.
Be open. I guess I kind of thought to myself, I moved to a whole different city, to be in this program. So I want to take everything, that's offered to me.
Alexis is the current student disability case manager at Texas A&M University-Commerce.
All right, Alexis, thank you so much for taking the time just to meet and chat with us on Mentor Moments. We would love to, first of all, hear where you're calling from and like a short bio of your career and what has brought you to where you are today.
So I am calling from Commerce, Texas. That's a little bit outside of Dallas. I currently work as a student disability case manager for Texas A&M Commerce, and I've been here for the last 3 years. Just thinking about my, career bio, I think of education because that's what's really important to me. My grandmother was a teacher, and I was a teacher too for about 5 years in special education throughout Florida and Duval County and Miami-Dade, Broward County. And then I finished my rehabilitation degree. And I went into VR for a little while, but education, called me right back. And I ended up getting the invitation to come out to Texas. And now I'm working as a student disability case manager, making sure that our students have their accommodations as per the law, making sure that they understand how accommodations work and that we're advocating for them. So that's a little bit just about my career so far. I'm a licensed professional counselor associate as well. So that's something that I've finally gotten within the last year or so. And I do a little bit of counseling in the addiction space. So working with women in transition who are in sober living homes. I have greatly enjoyed that work so far. I'll actually be going to Italy in like a few weeks. I'm going to be gone for a whole month. I'm going to be on an archaeological dig site with veterans. And I'm going to be providing, therapeutic services to them. So I'm excited about that.
We might have to have a second episode here to learn about your trip and going overseas and your dig, right? That's awesome.
I'm very excited about that. Can't wait.
Yeah. I also hear so many great things. Like, again, the passion for rehabilitation, counseling, the teaching, the addictions, independent living. I mean, you really got a foot or a finger or toes in like so many different avenues. How did you sort of find your way to rehabilitation counseling, and how are you sort of cultivating your passion because you're doing so much?
Well, I remember actually when I was an undergrad. So my undergrad is in special education. Like all of these things are like really connected, but you kind of don't know about them until you get in there. So I remember in undergrad, I knew that I wanted to get a master's degree, but I wasn't quite sure what it was. And I actually met with the director of the Disability Resource Center at my college at the time. And she mentioned like vocational, like rehabilitation. I had never heard of it. I wasn't like, even in our special education program, like that never came up. And I remember she told me, well, I think a program in Tallahassee, still has it. And I, started doing research, and that's where like the step kind of got in my mind. And once I had been working, for a while as a teacher, and I'm like, okay, I do want to go to grad school. I want to get into vocational rehabilitation. I want to help individuals with disabilities, get jobs and get independent living resources. And through the RSA grant, I did go to school at FIU, Florida International University down in Miami, Florida. And the program that I originally signed up for, I was the rehabilitation counseling, but then I kept getting like pushed to kind of do the mental health counseling as well. And I said, why not? It's paid for, so I think I should do it. And at that time, I was a teacher, and I remember students like the program that I worked in. I would always say to myself, I am not a counselor. Like I'm a teacher. Like I'm not a counselor, but I really was. So, I figured, like why not hone those skills? And I'm glad. I'm really glad that I did do that.
Yeah, I think if there's a common thread that we're hearing through our podcast and these interviews is people just sort of taking the chance, not saying no to something, being open, being open-minded, being adventurous, and then kind of like yourself, realizing maybe you had that internal counselor all along. Even if you were in this teacher role, you really were sort of making connections and listening and helping people grow.
Yeah, yeah. So I would definitely, like agree with that. Be open. I guess I kind of thought to myself, I moved to a whole different city, to be in this program. So I want to take everything, that's offered to me, and I don't, regret it like at all. I'm happy that I did it.
That's great. Yeah. So with so many areas that you've been in, education and counseling and the rehab and the VR. I'm curious how those things have helped you in your profession, how those things have maybe overlapped, and what's something that maybe our listeners wouldn't expect that overlap to be has helped you.
Yeah, so just thinking about that, because I do work in student disability services, and a lot of people ask that question, but the point of vocational rehab is to work right and then work for students with disabilities, but most importantly, conceptualizing, like a person with a disability, knowing that they are a person outside of a disability, thinking about how work, interacts with that because the point of college is work. And I think sometimes that we forget about that. Like the reason why you're here is for work. So being a person who works in student disability services, who's looking at accommodation, to level the playing field, for someone, who does have a disability, just thinking about my CRC, I'm able, to provide that extra, information regarding accommodations on a job. So what might that look like? Also letting them know, like, hey, you do know that we are maybe willing, to pay for your education. After they do that, they're going to be willing to place you, in a job. These are things that really should be married together because folks with disabilities, we know that they want to work. We know that, the data says that they work just as well as individuals who don't have disabilities, but they may need a little extra assistance in making sure that they're being placed in suitable employment. So that is very important. Talking to students and about what that looks like for them. And here are the different things, that could be offered to you for free. Thinking about, my LPC status, it's very important for me, going back to identity, to really like look at a person's identity and know that, yeah, this is a person in front of me, but there are different parts, to their identity and how do those things, overlap because, we have our disabled peers and then we have our non-disabled peers. but there's going to be, just like a totally different experience. And that's important for me, to really think about those things and bring those, things up. So, so right now I'm a case manager and I don't like counsel, like in my job, we have a counseling center for that. But just having like that same information, that the counselor will have, I can better speak to another counselor like, hey, this is what this person is struggling with, and I think they need, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that answer response, and again, I see your again role, or if I'm hearing correctly, again, that it's an integrated team, and that's one of the things that brought me to rehab. I remember talking to the department head at the time, and he said, "Well, it's a collaborative effort," and I was like, "Shoo! That means I don't have to make the decision myself, right? Like I like working with other professionals, and yeah, so I'm glad you pointed that out for people who are thinking about the profession. Um, so I guess my next question is like, what do you love about working at a college and working with people to help them again maximize their potential, and then obviously graduate and go into the workforce?
So as a master's student, I remember I was walking one day and I was talking with a friend and I was like, I really like the atmosphere of college. It's all these new people from different places. Like nobody's like really in a rush, like to go anywhere. Like you're always surrounded by learners and then just different, resources. So that's one of the things that I really like about working at a college. It's like the atmosphere, you are always motivated. To strive further because there's people who are constantly learning. There's a lot of research that's happening, and that kind of makes you, want to be on top of your game. And then I was a teacher, so I'll always, have a love for education. I always have a love for working with students and just watching them, grow throughout the process because that student that you see, the first year is not going to be the same student, that you see by the end of that fourth year. So that's, just one of the things that I just really enjoy. And then remembering myself in that position, like we were all students, once we remember, missing a class or failing a test and just kind of meeting that student, where they are because you were there once too. And, just sharing your different experiences. I really do, like that because, we're all learning. That's very, important. I also like, accommodations and accommodations are like not black and white. It takes a lot of thinking sometimes to see, how can we not, change the nature of a course, but how can we still, comply, with Section 504. So it does take a lot of just like innovative thinking, a lot of going back, and forth, and you just learn, like so many different things.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's any success stories that you're thinking of right off the bat, just of having to use that creativity and thinking outside the box for accommodations that you've been able to help a student.
Yeah, so we currently have a program. It's called Atypical Ambassadors. I'm going to actually name that program. And it was originally a pilot project for students on the spectrum. So I do a lot of work with students on the spectrum on like a daily, weekly basis. And I can think about, one of our students who, came to the program, who was a little, shy and apprehensive. And a big part of the program is work because a lot of individuals on the spectrum, they are cognitively, academically are, compatible with folks who aren't, but jobs is where it really shows, right? Like the data there is not good. And that student had never had like any work experience. He had nothing on a resume. And now he actually like works like on a campus. And I see him sometimes and he's just like going to lunch, just like me. And, all of these things, kind of work together, to be successful. The accommodations piece, the atypical ambassadors piece, the work piece, all of those things really molded him into the campus employee that he is now. And, just seeing him and just like, oh, look at him going to lunch. He's at work, just like me, It's something that I just, just really like to think about.
Alexa, I wish our viewers could see you right here. You know, we're obviously just an audio podcast because you just are like lighting up, smiling. We can see your passion. We can hear your creativity or see your creativity in your facial expression. So I guess, you know, I just want to thank you for that. And then I also want to sort of acknowledge that we sort of got to know each other, or at least introduced through Rick Sizemore and his VR Workforce podcast. But even before that, I've seen your presence on social media and LinkedIn, and I know I will call you an influencer. So, like, talk to us about some of the things you do, YouTube, and some of the things you do in LinkedIn that really help promote, again, your passion and what you're doing for people with disabilities.
So I am a YouTuber. I joined YouTube as a YouTuber like a year ago, and I just started doing videos in my office and then in my home. So I actually started doing adult daily living skills videos because I was a teacher and I did work with a lot of students who needed that extra push, with washing dishes, with living independently because work is important, accommodations are important, as well as education. But there's another piece, like you have to be able to do certain things, on your own. So I started doing simple videos like washing dishes, sweeping, making things in the air fryer, just like fun, videos that would apply or that would give that extra instruction for a student or for a person who has a disability, to show them how to do different skills. And then that transition into my educational video. So every Wednesday, I typically talk about an educational topic. Like last week, I really focused on different services for you to know about during midterms. So, the counseling centers, student disability services, TRIO, student health services, these are tutoring. These are all services that you should be aware of, before midterms come so that you can make sure that you're keeping up with the different things that you've already paid for that you need to use them. As well as student loan debt, talking about my own journey and how we can make this thing work, for free. I'll actually be dropping a video this Wednesday about how now my doctoral degree is paid for. So I'm really excited about that and just letting people know, to not be discouraged. Education is hard, like, especially higher education. I was a first generation college student. My parents did not go to college and I got on a campus and I felt like defeated. Like I didn't know how any of these things work. But now I have, the bird's eye view, to tell people, okay, here's where you go and here's what you say. Here's who you contact. And those things have really helped students. I have a whole email list. Students email me on the regular. Sometimes they'll come and see me and ask questions. Folks who aren't even, registered with our office. But that information, helps everybody. So that's one of the things that I really enjoy doing on a regular basis.
Awesome. We'll make sure we put a link in the description here of the podcast so people can follow you and share your great work.
Thank you.
No, I love that piece of giving back to the next generation of, here's the things that like I wish that I had, whenever I was your age or whenever I was going through those things. And so I really appreciate that piece of just, passing on this info and hopefully, those individuals will do the same. One thing that we like to highlight here on the podcast are professional organizations. We'd love to hear if there are any kind of professional organizations that our guests are a part of, and we love to just give our guests the ability to highlight those if you feel called to.
Yeah, so that is really, really important. And that was something that I got into throughout my rehab program because I was on the RSA grant. And basically, there are certain stipulations that you have to, kind of do. And one of those was being a part of professional organizations. So that's where I got introduced to ACA. So I am a member of ACA as well as like their subset, I guess like their sub or sister like organization, which is ARCA. I'm actually going to be the student rep for ARCA. I will start my term in July. I'm also currently a part of NRA, the National Rehabilitation Association, and that's where I actually met Rick through the social media committee because I am the social media chair. So a lot of the things that you see put out on social media, those are from our committee board. And then I think I'm going to be like the secretary too. So I think I'll be the secretary until December. And then I also got introduced to NAMRIC, and NAMRIC is under NRA as well, and that's basically like the multicultural version of NRA, and that was the first time I saw a lot of Black and Brown people who are in our profession who have assisted me today. Actually, I'm the president at the time, Michelle Temple. She was a director of the Disability Resource Center, and I was able, to lean on her when I got this job, to tell me, so what are some things that they can add, what are some things that I should know. So, being a part of professional org is just very important in that networking piece. Because those are people that you can lean on. People who have been in the field for a while who can tell you, like, hey, one, two, three. If you're in the gym, this is what you need to do. So that is very, very important. And most of the time when you're a student, like they have, discounted rates, so take advantage of that. Or if you're on the RSA grant, they will cover that cost.
Yeah, take advantage, right? And again, this podcast is also in conjunction with our Missouri Rehab Association Eastern Chapter. So I really, again, I appreciate your thoughts on the importance of professional organization, joining multiple professional organizations. That's one of the things, again, I love about NRA, that there's the national, then there's regional, there's state, and even in Missouri, we have 5 different regions of MRA. So it's, again, lots of opportunities to interact.
Yeah. So we would love just to hear a little bit of any kind of tips that you'd like to share to our listeners. This is Mentor Moments. So we would love to open up the floor and give you the space to share your mentor moment.
So I think that something, that I would impart on the mentee would be to, really take advantage of the opportunities, that you see. We kind of talked about that earlier. So, don't be afraid, to dabble in something. I was like very apprehensive about the counseling at first because I was like, oh man, is that gonna like put me like a year back? Like what all do I have to do, But just stay flexible, open your mind, because you never know, where those things, may take you. It's kind of, like a spider web, like you'll have different pathways, to that main point. And you never, just want to box yourself in. So, stay open, join your professional organizations, but don't just like join them and be like a bench warmer. Like actually, like do things, there's things for you to do, things for you to put on a resume. You meet a lot of people who like are really like stakeholders, in this field. Like they've done like a lot. They have, like a big reach. So it's very important, for you to get in front of those people, to, take on some of their wisdom, because they're going to, retire one day and they want to know that they're leaving this profession to folks who are, competent. And then most importantly, folks who have a love, for the profession. I work full time, throughout my program. So for folks who are working full time, like I understand, how hard it is, but keep going, be encouraged, take breaks, when you need to, because I understand just how tough that is. But there is an end to it, like eventually, and you will look back on it and you will be happy, that you did. So just stay encouraged.
Yeah, we've been saying that a lot this episode. We love that. We love that response. I mean, I'm just so excited to get this episode out so people can hear you. So we just want to wrap up and say thank you for being interviewed here and helping us share the good news of our profession. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
So if you're listening to this, that means that you're listening to Mentor Moments. That means that you're probably listening on either Spotify or Apple Music, or maybe you're listening some other way. We just want to recommend that you continue to listen. Tune into some of our previous episodes and stay tuned. Subscribe to us because we'll have plenty more episodes coming your way as well.
In addition to the podcast, we have 2 other ways for you to stay connected with the Missouri Rehabilitation Association Eastern Chapter and Maryville University's Rehabilitation Counseling Program. We are proud to announce the creation of a YouTube channel and a blog. Both the blog and the YouTube channel will have all things related to the Missouri Rehab Association Eastern Chapter and Maryville University's Rehabilitation Counseling Program. Check us out.